Let's switch to the real estate side of things. So we're going to bring in our real estate expert on the topic. He's our real estate elite out of the Carmel Valley marketplace. The Wall Street Journal rated him San Diego's #1 realtor. You can see him on your screen right now, just dominating the San Diego marketplace. It's always good to have him in here. He was on my radio show this week talking about inventory, also some of the benefits of solar. So let's go ahead and welcome into the show Kurt Wannebo. Kurt, good to have you.
Craig, thanks for having me.
And we also have Sam Reid, who is a solar consultant with Peak Power Solutions that you've intentionally brought in to really talk about how that can add to the value of property, save some people money with, rising energy prices, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. One of the things that's kind of an unofficial statistic is that I would say right now at the $800,000 price point or more, every property I sell, I'd say about 1 in 3 does have some type of solar system or solar panels on their property.
That's a big number. If you ask me, I don't know how that comes off to the audience, but when I hear 1 in 3, that's a lot of people adapting to the new technology.
It is, and I find that consumers have a lot of questions about it because there are different types of systems and different ways to actually go about getting the solar panels put on your property with purchasing versus leasing. So that's why I brought in Sam Reid to talk about that a little bit today. So Sam, thanks for coming on as my guest.
Welcome to the show, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, man, let's talk solar. First time we've been doing this show for a year and a half. We've never brought someone in to talk solar. So
glad to be the first.
I'll just bat the ball over your way. You tell me what we need to know.
All right. I'd say to start off, really the biggest reason why people go solar these days is that SDG&E has the highest electric rates in the nation.
And did they just increase?
Yeah, they did last year. They've pretty much increased, the majority of years moving, for the last 15, 20 years. So, we see a hike all the time with the San Onofre plant closing. We've seen a lot more. But I'll give you a real life example. Last night I met with a couple, and your normal couple, husband, wife, 2 kids, and a pool. And their electric bill was between $400 and $600 every single month.
Wow.
Yeah, and the worst part for those guys is that they lived in an area where it got really hot, and they didn't ever run the air conditioner because it would increase that bill even more. So for them, not only were they paying a bill that was the size of a BMW payment, but they were also not really being comfortable in their own home. And we were able to get them into a program that didn't cost them any money to do, dropped their rate about 40% off of what they were paying. And so for them, they can use that extra money to, pay other bills or, take the family on a vacation or put it in a kid's college fund, whatever that is, but just not waste it paying the utility.
So here are the questions I have. So obviously people want to save money.
Yes.
Right? So you're going to reduce your energy liability. It's also good for Mother Nature, right?
Yeah.
So you're going to reduce that liability. But in order to do solar, you have to have money to save the money, right? So you have to either finance it or pay cash. So how are people approaching just the financing process of it? And I'd love to know from your opinion on those 1 in 3 homes. What does that do for their property value? Start with you, Sam.
Okay, great. Well, first off, that's one of the things about solar is that throughout the history of solar, people have said, hey, listen, that's something that only people with a lot of money can afford, right? Last year, 74% of all solar was done under a solar service agreement, which means that you don't actually have to buy the system. A third party will buy the system for you. They'll monitor it, they'll maintain it, they'll insure it, they'll take care of everything. And in most cases, people don't have to put any money down. They just agree to buy energy from that system for a far lower rate than they get from the utility.
So I'm a consumer advocate. Let me be devil's advocate.
Okay.
Why wouldn't someone do this? What would keep someone from putting a solar panel on their home? It's going to save them money. Seems to make sense. You just save someone 40%.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest thing is misinformation.
Okay.
People don't really understand solar. There's a ton of solar companies out there, and some of them do purchases, some of them do leases. And so, one company will tell somebody, hey, leasing's the way to go. It's the only way to go. Somebody else will say, hey, purchasing's the only way to go. And then they're stuck and they don't really know what to do. They don't know who's telling them right, and they stick with the utility.
So let's talk a little bit about purchasing a solar unit.
Sure.
First, aren't there some incentives for consumers if they decide to buy their unit?
There sure are. The biggest incentive right now, guys, is that there's a 30% federal tax credit that goes if you purchase a solar system, right? So if you buy a solar system that costs $20,000, the government...
Is $20,000 a good figure to use?
Yeah, it's a little on the lower end. Generally they're $20,000 to $40,000 if you choose to purchase them. That's a pretty solid range. But say you bought a $20,000 system, the federal government would actually give you a $6,000 tax credit.
Right.
And imagine that. Imagine you go to buy a car and the government's like, I'll pay for a third of that, right? You'd think it was better than Christmas. So one of the great things that Peak Power does is we're actually able to take that tax credit and apply it directly to the system cost at the point of sale, so our clients don't have to wait to the following year to see that tax benefit.
What are the things to look for? There's no shortage of solar commercials,
Right.
San Diego, you see them on TV, all in the Union Tribune. Everywhere you look, it's solar. What separates a good solar company from bad?
That's a really great question. I think
Are there bad guys out there? Or can you get ripped off?
It's like any industry. The majority of companies out there are really good,
Yeah.
and obviously there's a couple of bad eggs, but there's a couple real easy things to look out for. I mean, one is that company's been in business several years, right? You'd rather have a company that's done a couple thousand jobs of experience as opposed to a couple dozen jobs, right? The other thing is, you want a company that's going to be around the entire time that system's up there to help you maintain it and provide customer service. You want a company, you can go onto the Better Business Bureau website, you can look at Yelp, and make sure that company has a really good reputation. Those things are really important.
Kurt, 1 in 3 homes.
I would say so. One thing to add on to what he's saying, I believe in specialization, meaning somebody who focuses on something specifically. And I know in his industry there are people like contractors who are willing to put on solar systems for you, but it's not their specialty in what they do day in and day out. So it is important, I feel, to utilize a specialist. But in regards to your point of 1 in 3, the other people always ask me is, how does it affect the value of your property? Now that does really come down to play in regards to what he talked about in regards to purchasing versus leasing.
Right.
If you purchase your system, you own it outright, it's there for you to use all the time, and it typically can add substantial value to the property. However, the downside of that is it costs money, but
Sure.
it does add value to your property. If you lease it, however, what happens is many times the leases are for how long?
Usually 20 or 25 years.
Which means if a new buyer is going to come in between that time period, they're going to have to purchase this or pay for the lease as well, which could be an encumbrance on the property and something that buyers may or may not be willing to pay for. So it can affect the value sometimes if a new buyer has to come in and take over a lease like that.
So what it boils down to, I think it boils down to the numbers, right? If you are in a home and you're spending an ungodly amount on your electric bill, this is something to explore. We just talked with James Carmody about where interest rates are. You might be able to refinance 20 to 30 grand, buy it. That's not leasing. I mean, that's taking out money out of the mortgage, get into that low interest rate, refinance, take out cash, buy it, put it up. Now you start saving your electric bill, and whatever you might see as an increase on the mortgage payment slightly for that 20, 30 grand, you're going to reduce the electric liability. And certainly in Kurt's
Increase
case,
the
you might
value.
bring up the value of the property.
Yeah.
All right, Kurt.
One question I had asked him earlier in the week is, which is better? Is it better to buy or is it better to lease? And what did you tell me?
Well, I told you that it really depends on the client. I'll give you another real life example. My mom purchased a system 5 years ago.
Okay.
Right, and her electric bill was around $200 a month. And so she looked at it over the next 25 years and added in a little inflation and said, I'm going to spend 100 grand on electricity over that term. Instead, she was able to buy a system after the rebates and tax credits that cost about $17,000. So $17,000 for something that improves the value of her home, over $100,000 to the utility. For her, it was a no-brainer, but she's going to be in that house, she's going to retire in that house, she's going to be there long term. That was the right option for her, right? Like I said, about 3/4 of all solar last year was done under solar service agreements, and those are really popular right now. It's just a zero down, pay less for electricity, company takes care of everything.
So great information.
Yeah, so the point is, there's a different answer for everybody. It's no different when somebody asks me, should I sell it or should I rent it out?
Right.
It really depends on what your goals and objectives are and what you're looking for and what you could utilize the capital for or what you'd get as a rate of return for rental. So that was a great answer when I asked him that.
Awesome. Well, Kurt, we're going into we're in the winter season, going into 2015. We got to go to break here, but anything anyone needs to know about real estate right now going into the end of the year?
No, things have changed. What's great is you had actually sent me a video the other day. Was one of these news articles or news stations talking about how they're tracking the inventory in marketplaces.
Yep.
It was interesting. They focused specifically on San Diego and actually had showed that inventory was up 31% from last year. That data, I consider it to be old now because they get their information that's 30 to 60 days late. We're heading into the holiday season, which means a lot of people are taking their homes off the market, which helps stabilize prices and get things going a little bit. So it's actually a really good time of the year for sellers to put their homes on the market and consider.
Got it. Well, brokerkurt.com if you're looking to buy or sell. Kurt's out of Carmel Valley. Got a great team that covers all of San Diego. I encourage you to connect with them. Sam Reid, great information from you as well.
Thank you.
I encourage you to visit these guys online. They can give you all the information you need, not just on the market, but different types of solutions from mortgage planning, solar planning, tax planning if you buy a house, anything well beyond. They are a terrific resource.